Hi, and welcome to our tnAchieves 2023 Mentor Update. I'm Graham Thomas. You also see here with me Tyler Ford, our Senior Director of Mentors. And today we're really going to do a couple of things. First, we're going to go ahead and preview for you what the tnAchieves mentoring program is going to look like in 2023. We've got some big changes. I'm going to fill you in on why we are making those changes, and then Tyler's going to really kind of dive into what the mentoring program is going to look like. This also will count as your training. So if you watch this today and decide that you're ready to hang with us for another year, help us reverse some unfortunate trends, then you're going to be ready to do so. You won't have anything else that you have to do until you get your students this fall, which we're going to talk about. So Tyler, why don't we go ahead and flip to the next slide. What you're going to see on this next slide is some really unfortunate news. In Tennessee, since the pandemic, our college going rate has really plummeted 9 percentage points. So you look back to 2015, that is when we launched Tennessee Promise. We had that 4.6% bump in our state's college going rate, which if this chart was extended out further, you would see more than the previous 7 years combined. And we had a really steady, small uptick for a few years, a small little decline, nothing there that is too over the top concerning. And then you see that we had a almost 5 percentage point drop the first year of the pandemic from 19 to 20. And then the Tennessee Higher Education Commission just released some information, an additional 4%. So we have dropped 9% in 2 years. I will tell you that this is a trend that we're not only seeing in Tennessee, but we're seeing across the country. Just like we've seen probably every industry or business and school, whatever it is, it's affected everything, right? It's affected all of our lives in ways that none of us could have ever seen. So the news is not great. We're going to talk to you a little bit about a new kind of theme this year, and it's what we're going to call It Only Takes One. What we have seen here from 2019 to 2021 is that we've lost about 7,000 students from the pipeline going straight to college from high school each year. We recruit 9,000 volunteer mentors each year, ultimately to train about 7,500 of you. So our thought is, if each of you works with just one student, if you get just one student in your group and you can help that student transition from high school to college, we could reverse this in 1 year, right? When you boil it down to one student like that, it sounds very doable. Maybe a little bit different when you're thinking, how do we get 7,000 more students back in the pipeline? So we need you to really dig in with us here in this coming year and help us get just that one. One note on the college going rate, what this number represents is the number of students in Tennessee that started at a public high school, made it to graduation, and then the percentage of them that went to college right after high school. So that's the number that we're dealing here, just for a little perspective. Tyler, on to the next, please. Chrissy had a conversation with one of our college presidents years ago. He was brand new to the college president role, and he was telling Chrissy about how he had to learn that he needed to leave his staff alone on the weekends, was essentially the message, and that he needed to be able to separate his work from his time at home with his family. And he said, what I have to remind myself is that there's really no such thing as an education emergency. Well, this feels like an education emergency. Students are leaving the pipeline, specifically the students that we're trying to reach, which tend to be low income, first generation college students. And so we're making some big changes for next year. And I'm going to highlight these at a very, very high level. And then Tyler's going to come on here in just a second and kind of take the deep dive with you. But we've got 3 things that we're really trying to do. We're expanding our proactive coaching model. So 3 or 4 years ago, we created a coaching model with our low-income students that were going through the Tennessee Promise program. We received some funding in the governor's budget this year. It passed the General Assembly. We're able to expand our coaching to any economically disadvantaged students per their FAFSA, per the federal government, gets a coach. And then we also have completion grant funding. So we're going to be able to pay for these students for all the things that Promise doesn't cover. So Tennessee Promise will pay their tuition fees, and then we're able to pay for books, for computers, for gas cards. We've paid grocery bills. This is modeled off of a program called Knox Promise that we've been running with a $6.5 million donation from the Haslam family in Knoxville. And we've had a ton of success in that program, and we're now going to be able to take it statewide thanks to the funding from Governor Lee and the General Assembly. Second thing we're going to do is we're really going to use our data. We are getting data dumps from the colleges regularly. We're uploading those into our online platform, Connect. And that's how you get to see when students are applying to college, when they registered full time. And then we're going to couple that with the student voice. So if you remember, we did our Find Your Why campaign last year, really digging into why is it that students are going to college. So we're taking the data, we're listening to the students and the stories, what it is that drives them to go to college, whether they want more career options, whether they want to make more money, or they're trying to break a family cycle or prove to themselves that they can do it. We're putting all of these things together, and we're going to meet students where they are and make informed decisions to try and inspire students to get to college. And then we're reimagining our mentoring program in 2023. You're going to get the students this fall, sometime in mid-November, earlier than you've ever gotten before. You're going to be able to help us remind them about that federal financial aid, the FAFSA. You're going to be able to help us not do that for them because we know it's a lot of private and sensitive information. You're going to be able to help them. And we're going to get these students to you as soon as we can. So students will apply up until November 1st. We're going to pair them with you as fast as we possibly can after that. And you can start getting students excited about going to college earlier in the process. Brand new to us, we're extremely excited about it, but it also means that our window to find the 9,000 of you is shorter. So we appreciate that you're watching this today. Hope that you're going to join us. And I'm going to kick it over to Tyler, and Tyler's going to really take a deeper dive into what exactly these changes mean for the program, but also for you as a mentor.
Thanks, Graham. I couldn't be more excited to have the chance to kind of talk through some of these changes that Graham just mentioned related to the mentoring program, because for 3-4 years now I've been in this role, and especially during the pandemic, we've made changes to the mentoring program, whether it was shifting virtual or shifting to the hybrid model that we've seen in this past year. And now I'm really excited as we look ahead to 2023 that we have the opportunity to build what I really do believe is a really effective, really meaningful mentor program. That when we look at that college going decline, and when we look at the challenges that face our students in the next year, I think these changes that I'm about to share with you, these updates, are really going to be a huge win for our students, for our program, and for you as a mentor. So I want to just take a little bit of time during today's session to talk you through these changes, explain what they mean for you as a mentor, and talk through how you can continue to stay involved here into 2023. So like Graham mentioned, at a high level, we've got 3 changes in 2023. Or really 3 core pillars of mentoring in 2023. First, you're going to have earlier access to your students. Like Graham said, we're going to get you your list in November, really earlier than ever before, which hopefully will give you a huge leg up in your work with students. We're also going to make a return to in-person meetings. I'll tell you, this past year with our shift to a hybrid model, offering those open house meetings, I think those open houses were really well received by mentors. It was awesome for our team to get out there and to see mentors and students together in person again. But the most consistent piece of feedback we saw with those meetings was the request that we make them mandatory again, that we get students back around a table with you. And that's exactly what we're going to do with these in-person meetings. And we're going to continue to allow you access to some of those familiar virtual tools that you've come to know over the past 2 years. We're not going to take those away from you just because we are returning to in-person. We're going to continue supporting them, allowing you to leverage them, and really give you the tools and resources so that you can effectively serve your students, not just at that in-person meeting, but throughout your time as a tnAchieves mentor. First thing that I want to talk in detail about, though, is that earlier access to students piece. This is one of the changes that I'm most excited for when we think ahead to 2023, because there's 3 huge benefits that it gives to you as a mentor. First, it gives you more time to explore college options. When we think about 2022, you didn't get your student list until about March 4th or March 5th. And what we know is many students have already made their college decision by March. Many students, specifically our target students, may have written off the idea of college altogether, may have made other plans. But because now in 2023 and really the latter half of 2022, you're going to have the chance to start with your students in November, it's just going to give you an additional 3, really even 4 months to work with your students, build those connections, start to make that impact. And it just gives you more time to connect with them, simply put. specifically for that student who may never have thought about going to college, who may not know what the FAFSA is. You're going to be able to get with them, make that impact, and start getting those wheels moving earlier than you ever were able to over these past 2 years, really. So we're excited to give you that additional time to explore college options with your students. You're also going to be able to connect your students with FAFSA resources. Now, the FAFSA, just as a little bit of a reminder, is the free application for federal student aid. This is the application that all Tennessee Promise students are required to file in order to stay eligible for the scholarship. But in a much more broad sense, it's just an important and quintessential step in the college going process, right? This is the step that helps students to get financial aid. It's what's going to keep them eligible for Tennessee Promise. It's going to serve as a Hope Scholarship application. It just is a really important step in terms of any student going to college. So it's an important step for your students to complete, whether they plan to use Tennessee Promise or not. And as a mentor in 2023, you're going to be able to help connect your students with FAFSA filing resources. As Graham mentioned, it isn't our expectation that you sit down with your students and go line by line through the FAFSA and really get into some of those personal details. We don't expect you to do that. But what we do hope is that by getting you your student list in November, you have the opportunity to talk with your students, make a plan with them to have them complete the FAFSA. We will share with you additional trainings as the FAFSA is getting closer, as well as additional resources to help your students complete this requirement. What I mean by that is our team is really always available during this season in January and February to help your students file the FAFSA. So is many college campuses make resources available, as well as high schools. So there is no shortage of resources to help students file the FAFSA. And as a mentor, we'll help to make you aware of those resources so you can make sure your students file the FAFSA and are on the right track to go to college in the fall. Finally, you're going to be able to work with students from varying college-going backgrounds. I think this comes back to that more time to explore college options piece, and that you're going to have access to those students in November who may have completed a Tennessee Promise application, but may not really know anything else about the college going process, may not even know that the FAFSA exists or is a step they need to complete. And for those students, we're always thinking about how do we get those students into the college pipeline, right? How do we get them to a school come fall? And now you're going to have access to those students. You can start working with them on the FAFSA. You can start talking to them in December and January about what college is a good fit for them. You can really find an opportunity and find a path for those students who may otherwise have been completely and totally lost in the college going process. As we mentioned earlier, it just takes one student for a mentor to make an impact in 2023, right? The opportunity to get one additional student into the college pipeline, that's going to help to reverse those college going trends over the coming years. So this opportunity to work with those students from varying college going backgrounds, that's going to make an impact. And I think all of these pieces combined is going to be a really positive change for you as a mentor. But of course, one of those additional pieces I think that is important for you as a mentor is the chance to meet with your students in person. Like I said, during the pandemic, we've had the opportunity to serve entirely virtually. We shifted to that hybrid model in 2022. And now when we look at 2023, you're really going to have the chance to sit around a table once again and see your students face to face. These are, I think, one of the pieces that I'm most excited for when we think about the coming year, because it's a chance to see you do the work with students in person again. And seeing those open houses play out over this past spring, there was nothing more rewarding than seeing some students and mentors sit together at a table and have a conversation that lasted for 45 minutes or an hour. And here, as we look ahead to the coming year, you're going to have the chance to do that again. So getting back to in-person meetings is absolutely critical for you to make that positive impact on your students and for you to have that ongoing relationship throughout the year as a Tennessee Achieves mentor. This is not to say, though, and we'll discuss this more here in just a moment, but this isn't to say that you're not going to continue to have flexibility in your role as a mentor. We will hope that you and ask that you attend this in-person meeting because truly getting them around a table and getting to know them fairly quickly after your time being paired is important. But also, we know that throughout the year, you may choose to continue mentoring virtually, to schedule video calls, to schedule phone calls on Tennessee Achieves Connect. We will offer additional in-person meeting opportunities throughout the year, but that initial in-person meeting is going to be important for all mentors to make an effort to attend because it's going to set the tone for your time as a mentor. It's going to be your opportunity to confirm contact information, put a name with the face, and really hit the ground running with your students here in early December or January. So in terms of details for this in-person meeting, the location is going to be based off your high school preference. So all mentors every year are able to choose what high school they'd like to work with. If you haven't recently updated your high school preference or would like to do that, you'll have the chance to do that later on, actually, as part of this process. But you can always email me at tyler@tnAchieves.org and we can get that updated for you as well. That's no problem at all. These meetings will also take place in early December through the end of January. So again, earlier in the timeline really than we have in the past, which with you being paired with your students in mid-November, you're really going to have the opportunity within weeks to get to know them, see them face to face, and then set the tone for your rest of the time working together. And then finally, this meeting is going to be mandatory for students. Like I said, this is probably the most popular piece of feedback we got from mentors after this spring meeting. And I think it's an important piece for you as a mentor, because this will get your students to that meeting. It'll be your chance to see them, get to know them. And then from there, you can really work with them moving forward. But it is important that we get the students to this meeting. And by making it mandatory, again, by working to get more students in the door, that we've done exactly that. So I think the entire team, I know I am really excited to see a return to in-person meetings. And I'd share with you too that we're going to really make this meeting about your work as a mentor, right? Giving you more time to connect with students, more opportunities to engage with them. And of course, tnAchieves is going to share information and share details at this meeting to help set your students up for success. But you will have that opportunity to get to know them, talk with them, and really build that relationship at this in-person meeting. Another piece that I want to talk about, though, is that familiar virtual tools piece. And I think it's an important piece. While we are returning to in-person meetings, we're getting you your student list earlier in this next year. We're not going to take away these virtual tools that you've gotten so used to over these past few years. So things like tnAchieves Connect, that online mentoring platform, is going to remain critical to your role as a mentor. Not only can you schedule video calls using Connect, not only can you message your students and track their progress towards goals, but you can also see where they stand on community service, their college application and registration status. There's all sorts of really valuable data that we're constantly updating in Connect, and that's going to remain the case into 2023. And you'll have that continued flexibility after that first in-person meeting to leverage this platform for continued virtual connection with your student. Another piece that we're going to keep, and I think we're going to keep for many, many, many years, is mentor hours. I think this is one of my favorite pieces that came from the pandemic, because it's an opportunity for me and our team to sit down with a group of mentors for 30 minutes or an hour sometime in the week and just have a conversation about mentoring. Certainly, I'm answering questions during this time. Certainly, we're talking about the role as a mentor, but we also get the chance to hear from other mentors on best practices that are working, maybe things that aren't working, and just kind of identify ways we can better serve students. I love mentor hours because it's my chance to meet with mentors who I otherwise probably just wouldn't be able to meet with. And we're going to continue to offer these sessions into the next year, because I know that for many mentors, this has become a great opportunity to connect with our team, connect with other mentors, and just leave feeling better supported and better about the work as a mentor. Finally, there's a continuing education piece. We're going to rely on continuing education in 2023 in a way that we just haven't in the past. So certainly those Monday emails will remain a piece of your work as a mentor, but we're also going to share with you regularly throughout your time as a mentor over this next year, regular continuing education webinars. So these will be 10 to 15 minutes, varying length, but nothing too long. But because the mentor timeline is going to be longer than it has been in the past, we feel it's important to provide you these update webinars throughout the year so you can learn about things like the FAFSA as they're coming closer. Because right now we got months until the FAFSA. So we'll provide you with the FAFSA webinar in December and January as that is becoming timely and important for your students. And that's the same goes for things like the community service deadline, college enrollment. We will identify opportunities and trainings that you need to get when you need to get them. So you can constantly be learning about student requirements, constantly be learning about expectations, and provide that information to your students. So these familiar tools are going to remain a piece of your work as a mentor. And we're going to continue to look for ways to make sure you have the best information when you need it, and it's timely and valuable to your work as a mentor. I think it's always important, though, that we talk about the expectations of serving as a mentor. When we think about Tennessee Achieves mentoring, and particularly when we think about Tennessee Achieves mentoring over this next year into 2023, we always know that there is going to be a common rate of attrition with this mentor program. So if, for example, all mentors in 2023, because we are pairing earlier, can expect to receive anywhere from 8 to 10 students. That is going to be because we've got more students to pair with a mentor, and that's absolutely a good thing. But what we know is part of the Tennessee Achieves and Tennessee Promise program is that many students are going to apply for Tennessee Promise, not really thinking they're actually going to use the scholarship, thinking of it more as a plan B or as an insurance policy on their post-secondary plans. And that is 100% okay. We know that many students may plan to go to a four-year institution, may plan to go out of state, maybe enlist in the military, all great options for our students. And they're applying for Tennessee Promise just in case that plan should fall through. As a result, what we typically see as part of this program and as part of your role as a mentor is that after the mandatory meeting deadline and after the FAFSA deadline, what we see is some students are going to feel more confident in that plan A, and they're going to choose not to remain Tennessee Promise eligible. They may miss a deadline knowing that they're going to go somewhere that just doesn't need the scholarship, that won't accept the scholarship. So many mentors after that mandatory meeting and FAFSA deadline will be working with about 5 to 6 students. After the community service deadline, the same type of thing may happen, where we're at July 1st now, more students are becoming more confident in their plans. And again, they're choosing Tennessee Promise is not going to be a part of their post-secondary journey. So we see that most mentors are working with about 4 students after that community service deadline. The thing to always think about as a mentor are those 2 to 3 students that most mentors are working with after college enrollment, because these are the students who have benefited most from your work as a mentor, right? You help them starting in November, navigate the process all the way up until the point in the fall when they're starting, they're going to college and they're actually doing it. So what we always ask of our mentors is that they not focus in on those students who did become ineligible, did make other plans, but instead really think of those 2 to 3 students that have started at college, who may have had nowhere else to turn in the college going process. But because you've committed your time and because you've made this difference, we're really seeing a positive impact. One critical theme, as we've said a couple times throughout this webinar, is that if each mentor in 2023 can get just one student into college, we're going to reverse the downward college going trend this year. It really does take just one student for you to make a difference in this coming year as a mentor. And I think that's something to keep in mind. I hear from mentors all the time where, the hope is, right, that you're able to work with all students and you're able to stay engaged with them, but they feel down because they've only got 1 or 2 students who have actually started college using the scholarship. And I always say that is an absolute win for you as a mentor. 1 student, 2 students, whatever it may be, those students that you get to start college in the fall, particularly in this coming year, are students you've had a huge impact on, you made a huge difference for, and it's just evidence that your work as a mentor is paying off and making a difference. And I guess our next point is really that mentoring in 2023 is going to be critical. It's going to be an absolute game changer for our students. And we need your help to make this difference for students. We hope you continue with us into 2023 because as we've seen, there are challenges facing students. We really need to make sure that the class of 2023 is engaging in the college going pipeline, starting down this path. And one of the best resources we have available to us is you as a Tennessee Achieves mentor. That local support component that we as a team can never replace, but with your support, we can absolutely make that difference for students. So a common theme for this year for Tennessee Achieves is we're ready, and we need your help to ensure every student is supported. Like Graham said, we need 9,000 mentors earlier than ever before this year, by October 21st, 2022. And we hope you'll continue with us as a mentor in this coming year. This can serve as your mentor training for 2023. And we hope that after this webinar, you answer the question following this webinar, indicating whether or not you plan to continue, because we'd love to have you back as a mentor into the next year. And this is really your opportunity to help engage, help make a difference for students, and really support them through the college going process as we work to reverse these downward trends that we've seen throughout the pandemic. In terms of your expectations, jump back here, in terms of your expectations and what 2023 is going to look like. Like I said, now through October 21st is your opportunity to continue as a mentor, and you'll be asked to continue right after this webinar, and we hope you'll continue. After you continue as a mentor, you will have completed this next step right here, which is that mentor training requirement. you can expect to receive your student list in November of 2022. And when we send you that student list, we're going to provide you with critical details that you need to serve students, right? So that's going to be an opportunity for one of those continuing education webinars that I was talking about earlier. When we share with you your student list, we'll provide you information, we'll provide you resources so that you can effectively reach out to your students and work to get them towards that next piece that we see here, which is that mandatory meeting piece, right, which is going to take place in early December or January of 2023. From there, the mentoring role is going to continue to really look like what it has in the past, right? We'll ask that you reach out to your students bi-weekly, that you establish consistent, persistent communication with your students from February through May, then really May through August of 2023. You'll continue to have that flexibility to meet in person or to meet virtually if you'd like. But that period from after that January 2023 mandatory meeting, really through August and through the summer, is all about making sure that your students have that consistent mentor communication and are engaging through the process. Finally, August through October 2023 is really when you're wishing your students well. You're getting them started in college, you're making sure that they're successful, and you're making sure that they have the resources they need to effectively start their college career. Most important pieces to know right now as you're considering mentoring in 2023, that we're going to get you the information and the resources you need as those deadlines are approaching and as those requirements are coming about. So we hope again that you'll continue with us in 2023 and that you'll continue to serve students in this new year, because the challenges facing students, the opportunities to re-engage students in the college going pipeline are really, really significant. And I think one of the best ways we can do that is through tnAchieves mentoring and through your work you've done in this past year, you've done in years past, and now we've got the opportunity to make. So thank you again for taking the time to view this session. You can see my contact information on the screen. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and I'm more than happy to help. Thank you.